Welcome to the Owner's Playbook, the podcast for visionary business owners who are building something bigger than themselves. I'm Carol Dewey, founder of Claris Advisory Partners and creator of the Navigator system. Each week, we help business owners increase company value, reduce unnecessary risk, create personal freedom, and ultimately build a business that serves their life, not consumes it. Today's topic is one that I believe will resonate deeply with many business owners listening, because it's possible to be successful and still feel stuck. It's possible to have growing revenue and still worry about money. It's possible to have significant net worth and still lack financial freedom. Today's episode is called The Wealth Trap of Successful Business Owners. And if you've ever found yourself wondering why all your hard work hasn't created the level of freedom you expected, this episode is for you. So let's dive in and start talking about the success paradox. One of the things that has surprised me most throughout my career is how many successful business owners privately feel trapped. From the outside, they appear to have everything: a thriving company, a nice home, nice vehicles, employees, clients, professional recognition. The community views them as successful. But behind closed doors, many tell a very different story. They can't take extended vacations. They worry about cash flow. They feel responsible for everyone else's livelihood. They carry the weight of payroll. They feel pressure to continue producing. And despite years of success, they aren't entirely sure they could walk away tomorrow if they wanted to. That's the paradox. The very thing they built to create freedom has become the thing limiting it. And that's what I call the wealth trap. Many entrepreneurs begin their journey believing a simple question: more revenue equals more wealth equals more freedom. Unfortunately, life doesn't always work that way. Revenue is not wealth, and wealth is not freedom. They're three completely different things. Revenue is activity, wealth is accumulation, and freedom is optionality. You can have tremendous activity without building meaningful wealth. You can build substantial wealth without creating freedom. And that's exactly where many business owners find themselves. They're successful on paper, but trapped in practice. Let me introduce you to Sarah. Sarah isn't a real client, but she is a composite of dozens of business owners I've met with over the years. Sarah owns a successful marketing agency. Revenue is approximately $4.2 million annually. The company generates around $700,000 of profit. She's built an impressive team. She's respected in her industry, and from the outside, she appears incredibly successful. If you looked at Sarah's financial statements, you'd probably conclude she's doing great. But let's take a closer look. 80% of Sarah's net worth is tied directly to her business. Most of her retirement assets are tax deferred. She has no formal succession plan, no written exit strategy, no documented value acceleration plan. Her top clients primarily work with her because of her personal involvement. She takes very few vacations, answers emails late at night, and quietly worries about what would happen if she became unable to work. Suddenly, the picture changes. Sarah isn't necessarily wealthy. Sarah is concentrated. Her wealth exists largely in one asset, one company, one industry, one source of income. One future liquidity event she hopes will happen someday. That's not freedom, that's dependency. And many owners find themselves in a remarkably similar position. In our last episode, I introduced what I called the owner's wealth triangle. Today, I want to expand on it. The three sides are business value, tax efficiency, and personal freedom. Most owners spend nearly all of their time strengthening one side of the triangle, business value. And that's understandable. The business creates opportunity. The business supports employees. The business funds the lifestyle. The business is often the owner's identity. But if tax efficiency is ignored, value leaks away. And if personal freedom is ignored, the owner may spend decades building a company that controls them. A triangle only remains stable when all three sides are strong. The challenge is that many owners don't realize they're neglecting one or two sides until much later. How do you know if you're caught in the wealth trap? Here are 4 warning signs. First, most of your net worth exists inside your business. Second, your business depends heavily on your personal involvement. Third, you don't have a clear plan for converting business value into personal wealth. And fourth, stepping away for more than a few days creates anxiety. If any of those sound familiar, you're not alone. In fact, they're incredibly common among successful business owners. The problem isn't that you failed. The problem is that nobody taught you how to transition from business builder to wealth builder. Those are different skill sets. The reason many owners get trapped is simple. The skills required to build a successful business are often different from the skills required to preserve wealth. Building a company requires risk. Preserving wealth requires strategy. Building a company requires concentration. Preserving wealth often requires diversification. Building a company requires hustle. Preserving wealth requires systems. For years, entrepreneurs are rewarded for focusing intensely on growth. But eventually there comes a point where growth alone isn't enough. At some stage, the question changes. Instead of asking, how do I make more money? The question becomes, how do I keep more? How do I protect more? How do I create options? Many owners never make that shift, and that's where the problems begin. Here's a simple exercise. Ask yourself these questions. Could your business operate successfully for 90 days without you? Could your family maintain their lifestyle if you became disabled? Could you retire if you chose to? Could you sell your business within the next 3 years? Could you comfortably say no to a difficult client? Could you take a month off? These questions aren't really about money. They're about control, because freedom is ultimately about control over your time, choices, and future. And that's the true objective of wealth. One of the most dangerous assumptions business owners make is believing they can always work a few more years. I've heard it countless times. I'll deal with that later. I'll start planning next year. I'll work another 5 years. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes it isn't. Health changes, markets change, family situations change, economic cycles change, buyers disappear, unexpected opportunities appear. The future rarely unfolds exactly as planned, which is why options matter. And options are created through planning. The owners who ultimately achieve the greatest freedom tend to think differently. They don't simply focus on growing revenue. They focus on creating transferable value. They don't simply accumulate assets. They think about liquidity. They don't simply save taxes. They think about long-term tax efficiency. They don't wait until retirement approaches. They begin planning years in advance. Most importantly, they recognize that wealth is not the destination. Freedom is. The business is simply the vehicle. If today's episode has you reflecting on your own situation, here are 3 actions I'd encourage you to take. First, calculate what percentage of your net worth exists outside your business. The answer may surprise you. Second, identify the biggest risk to your company's value if you disappeared for 6 months. Not because you're planning to, but because reality happens. Third, write down what financial freedom actually means to you. Not a number, a lifestyle. What would your ideal week look like? How would you spend your time? Who would you spend it with? Because unless you define freedom, it's difficult to build a plan that gets you there. The wealth trap isn't about failure. It's actually the byproduct of success. You've worked hard. You've built something meaningful. You've created value. The challenge is making sure that value ultimately serves your life, because the goal of business ownership isn't simply to create income. The goal isn't even to create wealth. The ultimate goal is to create options. Options create freedom. Freedom allows you to spend more time with the people you love. Freedom allows you to pursue purpose, and freedom allows you to choose. And that is what true wealth looks like. Thank you for joining me for another episode of The Owner's Playbook. I'm Carol Dewey, founder of Claris Advisory Partners and creator of the Navigator System. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd encourage you to subscribe and share it with another business owner who may be experiencing the same challenges. Remember, business value creates opportunity, tax efficiency preserves opportunity, freedom, that personal freedom, is the ultimate objective. Until next time, keep building with purpose, protect what you've created, and always play the long game. This is the Owner's Playbook, and we'll see you on the next episode.